Students often ask how they can learn the irregular simple past verbs in English. And unfortunately, there's a lot of memorization. These are irregular, they don't follow the same rules as other verbs, and so students have to memorize a lot. Some of our most common verbs in English are irregular, like go and went, do, did, run, ran, take, took. These are really common verbs in English, and the simple past form is irregular. We don't just add ed, it has a special spelling change. So unfortunately, you've got to memorize these, but there are a few patterns in irregular simple past verbs. So you still have to memorize them, but sometimes if you can find a pattern that many verbs follow together, it makes it a little bit easier to memorize because you're thinking about that pattern, how some verbs change in the same way. I'm going to show you one example of a pattern next, and there's also a handout linked in the description of this video with a few more patterns of irregular simple past verbs. So let's look at one pattern. Here we have the base form and the simple past form. We have break, broke, speak, spoke, steal, stole, tear, tore, and wear, wore. You might be able to see it already, but we have this EA spelling in all of these words. They all have that EA spelling. And when you look at their simple past forms, they all have an O and silent E. O and silent E. And then the final letter of each of these base forms is that final consonant sound of the simple past form. So it might help when you're learning all of your irregular past verbs to see a pattern like this and remember these words together a little bit. That way you're not memorizing random spellings of all of these different words. Now, of course, this is a pattern, it's not a rule, and there are exceptions. For example, the word teach has an EA in it, and it's a different irregular, teach, taught. So this isn't a rule you can follow every time, but it's useful to group these spelling patterns together when you're trying to memorize so many irregular simple past verbs.